Hello, good morning students. Today we are going to discuss the topic on exception handling from the course Object Oriented Programming Language. Let us have a recap first. In previous session we have discussed the various types of errors in Java. One of the error which is being detected by the compiler is called as compile time error. The error which occurs during the time of program execution is actually called as runtime error. And the program sometimes runs but gives the wrong output. It may be a logical error. So what is the need of exception handling? Whenever the runtime error occurs, the program is usually terminating abruptly. So this exception handling concepts, it is helping the programmer to detect the error and how to handle the error, and finally how to recover that program from the errors gracefully without crashing the entire program application. Let us see the real-time scenario with one programming computation. When a program is working in a system, if the program is suddenly facing an interruption, maybe if the programmer is working with the internet, if suddenly the internet connection drops, what could be the reason? So that exception we need to find it. Another example, a person is driving a car, suddenly a car got breakdown. What could be the reason for that breakdown exception? So if you see the programming statement, the variable is being declared and assigned with 10 by 0. We know that 10 is not divisible by 0 because the numerator and the denominator 0, which never been divided. So what happens if you try for such kind of computation when you run this program, and why do some programs crash unexpectedly with this kind of statements? So here the learning objective to understand the need for exception handling and to identify the types of exceptions, and also to implement try block, catch block, and finally block in the programming syntax, and finally to apply in the real world cases. So here is the programmer's code is given. It's a program which explains the exception. Here we have taken the variables n and m, and both variables are assigned with values, and we are going to make the division process. As you have seen in the previous slide, the answer is going to be calculated by 10 by 0, which is that n by m. So here it produces the error because it's an exception, it cannot be possible. So the system has to process a message error, division by 0 is not possible. So that's the exception, it is being thrown. So what the final understanding of the exception? When we empathize on errors, we need to detect the exception first. Then finally we need to throw the exception by passing the message. Then we have to catch the exception by receiving the error information. Then finally we have to handle the exception with a corrective action. So here is the syntax definition of the exception is explained with the form of flowchart. Here the flowchart we have 3 blocks. Try block is a condition, and it's a programming statements. Catch is the exception condition where the exception is identified and it has to process the error message. Then catch the exception by handling a set of coding. Maybe it may have some other classes or subclasses. And finally, there is a program continuation with respect to the entire programming objective. So these 4 things here it is explained in the form of flowchart, and here the example, it takes 1 try block and 2 catch block and 1 finally block. So it's a structured way of handling the exception handling. So there are There are other options, like we need to understand one of the exception object is gets created here, and another one is exception handler part. Okay, so in the try block, always exception caused statements are understood and it is been written, and in the catch block only the exception handling statements are written. Okay, so we have a separate form of coding. One is for a error handling code, another one is for normal code. So if you look at the keywords what are used in the try catch block, uh, and finally you can see that five keywords which are listed out. So one is try block. Here the try keyword is used to specifically uh, to place the exception code. It means we can't use that try block alone. The try block must be followed by either catch block or finally block. Then the catch block, which is used to the exception handling code, and the finally block is used to execute the necessary coding of the final program, and the throw keyword, it is used to process the exception message, and throws keyword is another form of throw. This keyword is used to declare the exception. It specifies that there may be an occurrence of an exception in the method. So it doesn't mean that throwing an exception. It is always used with the method signature. So there are two types of exception, checked and unchecked. Checked is compile time exception, and unchecked is the runtime exception. Other than this, there is one more called errors, severe out of memory error exception is also there. So let us take a testing exception activity process. We need to fix the bug challenge. So as it is explained in the previous slides, to run the code dividing by two numbers, and you test with zero denominator, and add the try catch finally block and observe the results. You can try this code in any language, preferably in Java. So you just see what is the output it is producing that. And in real life analogy, you can have a try block which is attempting of an operation in ATM. You say take it and catch what happens when it is not scanning the ATM card, when there is no account balance proper. So what message it is processing. Then finally, how it restarts the system. It restarts, and how you are finally withdrawing your money, or you're removing your ATM card. So the whole process, the real life analogy of that ATM transaction. So here it is a prototype example of it is given with the table details. So the same example, like 10 divided by 0. Here see the exception and what it is when it is declared with integer, when it is declared with double, how it is when it is declared with the different values, negative values or 0. So what kind of results it's producing. So that is, it is given with the explanation. So here the test phase, you have to create a file using the try catch block file handling process. Then how you are handling the file errors, like if the file is not available, how you can access the file. So then that time what the exception is causing, and you have to compare the file handling with the different cases of examples in the computer system. And the summary is here. It is given the mind map, what is exception, throwable, the types of errors we have discussed, and we also discussed that variations, differences between check exception and uncheck exception. Also we came to know the try catch block, the flow chart, right, how the try block, catch block, finally block it is executed. So that finally the students, you are requested to take the assessment by doing this kind of examples. You have to do a login process validation. You have to see how the exception is being triggered, then apply a file format, if it is whether it is being accepted or not. Then you find that API calls, application programming interface calls, whether it is everything is executed or not. So this is where the examples where exception handling in your projects it's happening. As a conclusion on the assessment, what is the purpose of finally block? It is It is execution always. And you need to find the example of unchecked exception like null pointer exception. So these two assessments you have to carry out. Also, you can compare this time the finally block, how it is compared with final keyword and finalize. It is also explained. So the definition it varies, and the application where it is used, and the functionality where it is being used, and finally how it executes. It's all explained as one of the example assessment. That's all. Thank you, students. Let us continue in the next class.